On a residential driveway, a quad bike reverses down narrow metal ramps when a small balance shift turns the descent into a stability hazard. Reversing motorized equipment down steep ramps can quickly change the center of gravity, making tipping or uncontrolled movement more likely. At a busy loading dock, a team guides a heavy pallet across a raised truck platform just as the supporting deck reaches its structural limit. Placing substantial weight on a suspended transport deck creates a serious structural hazard. When the load exceeds the system's design capacity, hydraulic components and supporting hinges can stop functioning properly without much warning. The steel platform may suddenly drop, immediately removing stable footing across the elevated work surface. Everyone handling shipments should verify maximum weight limits before any elevated platform is used. Operators should always engage physical safety locks so that if a platform unexpectedly moves, the area below remains clear of unnecessary activity. On a freezing, snow-covered facility roadway, a crossing zone becomes hazardous at the exact moment a fast-moving truck begins sliding across the icy surface. Operating heavy vehicles on icy surfaces greatly reduces available tire grip and steering control. Once traction is lost, momentum can carry the vehicle along an unpredictable path, leaving very little time for the vehicle's path or crossing area to be safely corrected. Even small steering corrections may not immediately restore control on slippery terrain, making every crossing significantly more hazardous. Every driver should greatly reduce speed and anticipate reduced traction whenever traveling across icy surfaces. Inside a busy production facility, a quick adjustment is attempted over an active machine, placing the access area near a rapidly cycling mechanism. Reaching into an energized operating zone turns a routine adjustment into a serious equipment hazard. Once the machine's operating cycle begins, the moving components leave almost no opportunity for tools or materials to be safely withdrawn. Equipment designed to apply high pressure and operate at high speed can quickly catch anything entering the mechanism. Everyone operating industrial equipment must completely isolate the power source before reaching inside any machine. Personal reflexes should not be treated as protection. Always verify that all stored energy has been safely removed before beginning any adjustment or maintenance task. Inside an active supply yard, a forklift begins lifting a massive unit from a truck when the suspended load suddenly starts shifting off balance. Lifting heavy materials from an elevated platform introduces a significant stability hazard. If the load becomes unbalanced while suspended, gravity immediately determines its direction of movement. The descending weight can move quickly toward the ground, turning the surrounding area into a hazardous work zone. Operators must carefully verify load balance before beginning every lift. All non-essential activity should remain outside the designated hazard zone and well beyond the lifting radius. Maintaining a generous safety perimeter helps ensure that unexpected load movement affects only the controlled work area. Inside an active loading bay, a rising metal beam is used as an unstable riding surface before an equipment issue suddenly shifts the load out of balance. Using suspended materials as a riding surface creates a highly unstable working condition. If one end of a long load suddenly drops, the opposite end can rise rapidly because of the load's changing balance and momentum. This sudden movement can easily displace anything positioned on top. Everyone should treat suspended loads as strict no-contact zones and remain completely clear of moving equipment. Operators should manage lifting operations from stable ground and ensure that any unexpected movement occurs only within a properly controlled and unoccupied area. High inside a demolition area, the final metal support beneath an overhead structure is cut, while thousands of pounds of hidden material remain suspended above. Removing structural supports from below can immediately trigger a structural failure. Once heat weakens or removes the final supporting member, gravity quickly takes control. The weight of accumulated soil, concrete, and surrounding materials can move into the space below with very little warning. Anyone modifying overhead structures should carefully inspect concealed ceiling and overhead spaces before beginning cutting operations. Cutting equipment should always be operated from a protected offset position so that if overhead materials are released unexpectedly, they move into a clear, unoccupied area rather than toward active work zones. At a marine dock, a massive suspended material hopper becomes an unsafe riding point as the lifting system begins showing signs of an equipment issue. Using suspended industrial hoppers as transportation creates an extremely hazardous working condition. If a lifting cable or supporting component stops functioning properly while carrying a heavy load, gravity immediately takes over. The suspended structure can descend rapidly under its own weight, placing the occupied point and the area below inside a serious drop zone. Remaining on a suspended load leaves virtually no safe escape path once unexpected movement begins. Operators must carefully plan lifting routes so suspended loads travel only through cleared areas. Suspended equipment should never be used as a riding point or work platform. Inside a massive distribution warehouse, a forklift lightly contacts a fully loaded storage rack, creating a developing structural hazard that quickly spreads through the entire aisle. Even a minor impact against overloaded storage systems can compromise their structural stability. Once a primary support begins to stop functioning properly, the weight of stacked inventory transfers to neighboring sections in rapid succession. This progressive structural failure allows shelves and stored materials to fall throughout the aisle, creating multiple hazards across the work zone. Limited escape space between storage racks makes these situations especially hazardous. Anyone operating equipment inside warehouse aisles should maintain generous clearance from loaded storage racks at all times. Facilities should securely anchor shelving systems. Inside a busy manufacturing workshop, activity continues beneath an operating industrial drive system, while loose hair remains exposed near rotating machinery. Working close to exposed rotating equipment creates a serious entanglement hazard for loose clothing, jewelry, and unrestrained hair. Rapidly rotating shafts and drive components continuously pull nearby materials toward moving parts. Once something becomes caught, the machine's mechanical force can draw it farther into the equipment much faster than the situation can be corrected. Everyone working near operating machinery should securely tie back and fully contain long hair before entering the production area. On a dark construction roadway, a heavy dump truck raises its fully loaded bed while parked on uneven ground, placing the entire vehicle under increasing instability. Elevating a heavily loaded dump bed significantly raises the vehicle's center of gravity. If the ground beneath the tires is uneven or unable to evenly support the load, the balance of the truck can shift beyond its stable footprint. Once this occurs, gravity quickly pulls the vehicle toward the lower side. Drivers should always confirm that every wheel is resting on firm, level ground before raising a dump bed. If instability becomes noticeable, the bed should be lowered immediately and the vehicle repositioned before unloading continues. Inside a large construction hall, a suspended steel beam is carefully guided between temporary scaffolding when the load unexpectedly begins drifting sideways. Moving suspended materials through confined work areas requires continuous control of load movement. If the suspended beam begins swinging or shifting unexpectedly, the changing forces can overload nearby temporary structures that were never designed to resist side impacts. The resulting movement may destabilize scaffolding, increasing elevated fall exposure across the work zone. Because suspended loads continue moving with their own momentum, even small shifts can quickly develop into much larger hazards. Everyone guiding suspended loads should ensure they are fully stabilized before making manual adjustments. Inside a bright office, two installers raise a large TV toward the wall while balancing independently on separate step ladders. Installing heavy wall-mounted equipment from separate ladders creates a significant balance hazard. As the weight shifts during positioning, both access points must constantly remain stable while the load is being supported. Even a slight movement can reduce ladder stability and increase the likelihood of losing balance. If either ladder shifts unexpectedly, the equipment can become difficult to control, while the elevated work positions also become unstable. Anyone installing large wall-mounted equipment should use properly rated lifting devices or stable work platforms whenever possible. Heavy displays should remain securely supported until final mounting points have been completely fastened. At a busy transport depot, a trailer top tarp is repositioned while a narrow crossbar is used as a support point above the trailer bed. Using temporary cover supports as handholds or body supports creates a serious fall hazard. These lightweight bars are designed to support flexible coverings rather than additional working weight. If extra force is applied, the supporting connection can stop functioning properly suddenly, causing an immediate loss of balance. Everyone working at elevated locations should treat temporary support bars as non-load-bearing components. Proper fall protection equipment should always be attached to a secure anchor point before working above ground level, and only designated structural supports should be used to maintain balance. Across a waterlogged industrial yard, a worker moves away from the designated walkway onto what appears to be solid ground. Walking across water-saturated ground near industrial drainage systems creates a hidden stability hazard. Continuous water movement can gradually erode the supporting soil beneath the surface, while leaving only a thin crust above. Although the ground may appear firm, it may no longer be capable of supporting weight safely. Once that weakened surface gives way, movement can become restricted in deep mud. Everyone working around wet industrial sites should respect all restricted access barriers and warning signs. At a bustling harbor dock, an elevated position remains occupied on top of a transport vehicle while a suspended load begins swinging across the active loading area. Standing within the travel path of suspended materials creates a serious impact hazard. Once a heavy load begins swinging, its momentum can carry it far beyond its intended position. Even a controlled lift can become unpredictable if the load shifts unexpectedly or changes direction. Any position on elevated equipment has limited options for avoiding contact, and sudden impact can quickly create a fall from height hazard. Everyone should clear the immediate lifting area before crane operations begin. Operators must carefully control suspended loads throughout every stage of the lift and ensure nearby personnel remain outside the designated swing radius. Inside a busy textile factory, an adjustment is attempted near a fast-moving fabric roll while the production line continues operating at full speed. Contacting moving material on a continuously operating winding machine creates a serious entanglement hazard. Rotating components pull material inward with steady force. If gloves, loose fabric, or clothing enter the pinch area, the machine can draw them in quickly, making full equipment isolation essential before any adjustment, clearing, or repositioning work begins. Anyone performing adjustments on winding equipment should completely isolate all power before reaching toward moving components. Whenever practical, use approved guide tools that allow corrections to be made while maintaining a safe distance from the rotating machinery. On a residential demolition site, a stubborn exterior wall section is pulled repeatedly until the resistance suddenly gives way near an exposed edge. Applying excessive force while removing structural materials near an exposed edge creates a serious fall hazard. As resistance builds, the pulling motion stores forward momentum. When the material suddenly releases, that momentum can disrupt balance. Without proper edge protection or fall restraint, a brief stability loss can quickly turn into a serious incident. Anyone carrying out demolition work at height should remain connected to an approved fall protection system whenever edge exposure exists. Outside a busy repair facility, a large industrial tire is inflated from a close position during the pressure buildup. Inflating large industrial tires without proper restraint creates a significant stored energy hazard. Compressed air places enormous force against the tire and wheel assembly. If a component stops functioning properly during inflation, that stored energy is released almost instantly. The resulting sudden release of stored energy or separated components can travel with substantial force, creating a hazardous area around the tire. Everyone inflating heavy-duty tires should secure them inside an approved safety cage or restraint device whenever required. Inflation should be performed from a safe position using remote air equipment whenever possible, keeping personnel outside the immediate hazard zone. Deep inside a paper mill, an inspection is attempted across a large rotating cylinder while the moving production line continues operating. Working close to active rollers creates a serious entanglement hazard. Rotating cylinders continuously pull materials toward the narrow gap where the rollers meet. If clothing, gloves, or loose material makes contact with that moving area, the equipment can quickly draw it inward. Because industrial rollers operate with continuous mechanical force, reaction alone cannot overcome the machine once contact has occurred. Operators clearing production jams should fully shut down and isolate all energy sources before reaching near the rollers. In a busy equipment yard, refueling is attempted from the side of a large machine while balancing on painted metal surfaces. Refueling equipment while standing on elevated machine surfaces creates a preventable fall hazard. Painted steel can offer limited traction, especially with dust, oil, or moisture present. Carrying a fuel container also shifts weight and reduces stability. A small slip can quickly lead to a fall when no secure standing platform is available. Anyone refueling heavy equipment should remain on stable ground whenever possible by using approved funnels or extended fueling equipment. If elevated access is necessary, a properly secured work platform should always be used instead of climbing directly onto machine components. At a busy petrol station, a loose fuel hose is approached near an open vehicle engine just as leaking fuel begins spreading across the engine compartment. Fuel leaks around operating vehicles create an immediate fire hazard. When combustible liquids contact hot engine parts or another ignition source, vapors can ignite quickly. Because fuel vapors spread through the surrounding air, even a small spark can create a fast-developing hazard, making secure fuel connections essential throughout every refueling process. Everyone handling fuel transfers should ensure every hose and nozzle is firmly secured before fuel begins flowing. Operators must continuously monitor the transfer process and immediately stop fueling if any leak or equipment issue is observed. Inside a cluttered stockroom, trapped debris is cleared from a large waste compactor while the raised access door hangs directly overhead. Working inside an active compression chamber without securing raised components creates a major equipment hazard. If a latch or holding mechanism fails, the heavy access door can descend under its own weight. Once movement begins, reaction time becomes very limited. Mechanical blocking, isolation, and lockout procedures are essential before any maintenance, cleaning, or inspection work takes place inside the chamber. Anyone clearing compacted material should always install approved mechanical supports before entering the work area. Across an active produce yard, a forklift cab is exited as a towering stack of leaning crates begins shifting toward the ground. Attempting to manually stop unstable industrial freight places a person in direct conflict with forces far greater than human strength. Once stacked materials begin falling, gravity steadily increases their momentum as they descend. Several thousand pounds of moving cargo cannot be safely restrained by hand. Remaining inside properly designed operator protection systems provides far greater safety than attempting to recover unstable loads during active movement. Machine operators should remain inside protected operator compartments whenever shifting cargo begins falling. Everyone handling freight should allow unstable loads to come to rest before beginning recovery operations using appropriate equipment. High atop an industrial rail tanker, a sealed access hatch is opened while combustible vapors continue building inside the enclosed tank. Opening enclosed transport containers that hold volatile materials requires careful control of pressure and ignition sources. As the hatch opens, trapped vapors can escape into the surrounding air. If those vapors meet a spark, they may ignite quickly, creating a hazardous area around the opening. Sudden pressure release or unexpected movement can also occur when preparation procedures are not completed properly first. Professionals inspecting pressurized transport containers should safely vent internal pressure using approved procedures before approaching the access point. Only properly rated spark-resistant equipment should be used whenever combustible materials may be present. At an active waste collection yard, an inspection is attempted between a garbage truck and its raised rear compaction assembly while the hydraulic system remains active. Standing inside the moving range of hydraulic equipment creates a serious caught-between hazard. As heavy mechanical assemblies close, hydraulic force continues until the cycle is complete. Any position inside the travel path leaves very little time to clear safely. Mechanical supports, lockout, and proper isolation are essential before inspection, adjustment, or maintenance work begins. Everyone inspecting heavy transport equipment should install approved mechanical safety supports before entering any hazardous area around moving assemblies. Operators must confirm the entire work zone is clear before activating hydraulic equipment. At a busy waste transfer station, a garbage truck raises its dump bed to unload a stubborn load when the front wheels slowly begin lifting away from the ground. Raising a dump truck bed changes the vehicle's center of gravity. If material sticks, shifts, or the ground is uneven, the balance point can move outside the stable base. The higher the bed rises, the greater the tipping risk becomes. Always unload on firm, level ground whenever possible. If the material does not release evenly, lower the bed completely, reposition the truck if necessary, and attempt the unloading process again. Avoid forcing a stuck load by making sudden vehicle movements or extending the lift beyond safe operating limits. On a quiet residential driveway, an engine compartment is inspected while relying on a single hood support rod to keep the heavy panel raised overhead. Working beneath an open vehicle hood requires confirming that the support system is properly engaged. If the support rod is not fully seated or becomes dislodged, the hood can close unexpectedly under its own weight. Because the movement happens quickly, anything placed near hinges, edges, or closing points can easily become caught before it is withdrawn. Everyone inspecting vehicle engine compartments should confirm that the hood support is firmly locked into its designated mounting position before beginning work. Hands and fingers should always remain clear of potential closing points of the open hood. To keep learning from these important workplace safety lessons, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay aware, stay safe.